cotton that'll do.
Alrighty, folks, here we are for Season 2 opener with Paul of Woods Transcending Fungi and Andrew, of course. How are you fine folks today?
Doing wonderful, sir.
All right. Well, it's a new year and pretty much all the same old shit. I don't know about y'all, but...
Yeah, pretty much work.
Exactly. Work some more so you can pay for food and groceries and all of those things that are up in price. But we're going to have a much better year, right? Anyhow, Paul here is a longtime friend, and we've talked about all kinds of stuff, but we actually haven't really talked about our businesses or even our podcasts that much with each other. We just kind of BS. So, Paul, why don't you kind of go into what Transcending Fungi is about and what your mission is in mycology?
Yeah, for sure. Where to start? Originally when we first started out, we were actually small batch myco, and because I was always focused on quality over quantity, and being in the Denver local scene, it was very heavy in the marijuana industry, and you see a lot of kind of mediocre just quantity stuff, and
Right.
So I felt like there would be room for having the top shelf stuff available, and working with only people that had the same mindset. Not necessarily just someone that's pumping out product, but someone that's just fully focused on the next best thing. Um, you know, so
Yeah.
ever since I was a kid, man, I mean, I was always the person that had friends that were, I'd be like, hey man, listen to this song that wouldn't, people would be playing out 3 months later, be like, oh, this is the new stuff. I'm like, man, I had you on that like months ago, same thing.
Right. You
So
told me that was garbage. What do you mean?
yeah, yeah. So it's when I first it was really the pandemic though that kind of set everything into play. I actually worked for Samsung for a few years, and after going through a bunch of companies and just realizing how like these companies just really don't care about the employees, yeah, I was just like, I'm done, and it was time for a change. And I wanted to do something for myself, but also do something for others to help them. And not to get too much into like past, but I've got a addiction history, and mushrooms, really kind of helped me with that. And that was one thing that I really wanted to strive to help with others as well. And so I've got a few um, military guys that they've told me that, I mean, I've helped them get sleep that they haven't had in a long time and stuff like. I mean, just those are the rewarding things that's better than any money that you can get. So
Definitely.
it keeps me going.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's true. I think there's a lot of folks that have come here for many reasons to heal from either addiction or just from stresses in their life, PTSD, etc. And it's I think really half of, I don't know if it's half. I couldn't tell you the metrics, but there's a good percentage of us that are here to help others and heal through helping. And I feel that's where I've come anyway. Like I certainly do get healing from the fungi itself and whatnot, but the social interaction and like you say, the confirmation that you're able to help other people is just really, really rewarding and helpful in the long term.
Yeah, it really is. And I do feel like that the industry, I mean, just like anything, it gets flooded with what I call is like byproduct, or spoiled product, however you really want to look at it. But it's just like anything else. There's good and evil, and it's the good that really kind of keep things rolling, and a lot of the good kind of get knocked down a lot of the times, and but that's the thing about us, man. We don't give up. we just
Yep.
we just keep going and chucking, man, and that's I think that's the mushroom industry to me is, I feel like it's there's so many people that like, oh well, can you just give me fruits? And I'm like, well, that's kind of defeating the purpose, like,
Right.
because in my eyes I feel like the growing process is something that has so many life lessons,
True.
and it really kind of helps you. I mean, it just helps you figure out life in my eyes. Just from, one thing that I was struggling with in my life is I was always wanting something right now. Where we live in a quick world, so it's like, um, you have to have learned that patience. With mushrooms, it's like they don't grow overnight. They take love and care and everything, and you really got to put that out in the world, and I really just feel like you get that learning life lessons from growing. So
Definitely.
And it's a good amount of structure too. You know what I mean? Like if somebody has depression, they're okay. I'm gonna get out of bed, go check on my mushroom grow, or I need to. There's always something to do, and it gives you a reason. Hey, even if I'm incredibly depressed, here's something for me to go do. At least I did this today. You know what I
yeah,
mean? It gives you
Right.
both structure and a sense of accomplishment.
yeah.
Yeah. Daily
At least
success.
at least I got one tub done today.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Exactly. Well, it's fun. It's much better than a pet rock. I mean, you can
Yeah,
see the thing grow, and eventually you can do something with it.
yeah, yeah. Um,
Even if you grow mold, I mean, you successfully grew mold,
We've
right?
all grown mold, man. We all have.
Maybe once or twice every few weeks.
if if that is one thing you don't learn, is you learn how nasty things can be in the world. Though it's like, you truly don't understand, and that's another thing people really don't take in consideration, is what we do is actually, it can be hazardous to your health,
Oh
if
yeah,
you're not careful. And that's that's another thing. You really have to, you take it serious. You have to take it serious. It's just like anything else. It's not a game. Because you
right.
can, it can get in your lungs, and yeah, it can cause damage.
Yeah,
It could
that's a
blow up.
common thing that I always see. People talking about smell your tub, and it's like, well, I understand what you're saying, and I've done it myself, but you should also be aware that there are toxic fungi out there that inhaling them can cause you some pretty good harm. So
Yeah,
smelling a sealed bag that's potentially contaminated isn't always a good idea.
yeah, yeah. When I first started, my wife, she, Lord bless her, she I actually sold my PlayStation 5 to get started in this game, and that's how determined I was. And I bought, my first genetics actually came from British Columbia, and it was some Jack Frost, and I don't know, I can't remember I had like two other ones, but I didn't have much money to start, and and after 2 weeks, and I did all the mistakes that every eager person that is wanting to get into this does. I did it, buying everything all at once, and that's that's something that I try to help others with now. Is like, you don't have to go ahead. Don't buy your sub the day you buy your genetics. Don't,
Right.
there's little things that you have to learn, but it was that first grow was just something that was just life achieving, and it was something that was rewarding because I went through so much to just get one grow. It didn't matter if it was just one fruit. It was just I did something, and
Right.
and for me, it was kind of like what kind of lit the light bulb was just like I can do this. Like it's like the manifestation of it is just so powerful. And and originally I was actually going I had two options. I was about to either do this, or I was actually about to open up um a pressing business for people to bring in their own uh, marijuana to press and
Oh
have
yeah.
basically like press rentals. And because of real estate and everything, little did I know, I'm sitting there thinking that it would be easier and more spacey to do the genetics. But um, when we first started, we had this like crappy apartment that was not clean. Well, when I say not clean, like not ran, like it had like underneath, we found out that it was like just mold and stuff like it. Basically, what I accomplished in this really crappy place to what I've become now, it really just shows what you can do, and what um, mushrooms, even in the outdoor world, it's like when everyone's like, oh well, you can't grow without a flow hood, or you can't do this, you can't do that. It's like, man, if you know what I did to get where I am now, like it's, you can do it.
Right.
Trust me.
Yeah,
But
there's varying degrees of success in mycology, and I mean, one of the gals I follow in Africa, they use rudimentary, I mean, like rudimentary sterilization and pasteurization methods. Like they will stuff clay pots full of their substrate and light a fire around it. Like if there's a will, there's a way, and you just, you have to focus and you have to try. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean they're all great ways, but
yeah,
they'll work every time.
Have you guys have you guys seen the spray bottle thing of the dude that's in like Puerto Rico or Costa Rica? He
Uh-uh.
literally just gets like a water spray bottle that you would put like cleaning chemicals in, dumps a whole spore print into it, and just walks around his property with water and just on some
that's the way
ranch.
to do it.
Yeah, and it just if that can take, you can grow mushrooms.
Right. Yeah,
You
that's
know,
pretty amazing.
could you imagine? So my end goal is to have like a kind of like a almost like a woods family fun park for friends and family to come out to. And I was laughing with my wife. I said, imagine if we turned it into, for like an adult season, we had it as like an electric forest, and I literally just went around with a bunch of liquid culture, just planted it like everywhere, And
Yeah.
so, yeah, I could totally see that, that coming to mind. And if you have the property to do it, I mean, Lord knows, I would probably put that to the test for sure.
Oregon
Yeah.
is kind of naturally like that. Like we have all these parks, and in all of the parks they're around water, and around the water is the alder and the cottonwood trees, and they always fall because they just don't have great root systems, especially near the water. So they chip them up, and there's piles of wood chips everywhere in all of these parks, and they use them for pathways and everything. And I mean, it's like I did that for a long time. I would collect spore prints or make an LC, and I would just make a big bottle of it. You know, take a liter or 2 liters out there and just go inoculate the bark chips.
So the Oregon, I mean that's why Oregon does have a kind of like that's like a lot of people I think that's their go-to in their mind when it comes to some of the wood loving genetics, correct? I mean, I guess that's kind of
There's a lot here for sure. The At least like the cyanescence, azurescence, and alani, the cooler weather varieties. You know, we don't have all the good ones. We don't have too many ovoids here. People have transplanted them, but
We got ovoids and Wiley Eye and Atlantis.
yeah. And I imagine a lot of those other ones are here too, because for quite a long time, people would look at the alani and they would be like, "Oh, well, that's not a cyan. That's something else. It's a false cyanescence," and so they wouldn't pick them. But they're all over in town, and then like you start realizing, okay, well, they're exactly the same. They just don't have wavy caps, and they have they grow in more clusters and they get a little bigger. They're actually better, and you can find them all around town. It's much like the landscape morels. People, you know, they talk about how hard it is to find morels, and well, yes, that is true. But if you go out in the early part of spring, especially here, again, they use all those same wood chips everywhere, and so you just go to somewhere that got wood chips last year and go look through their flower beds. And the chances are that in early spring, you know, when it's 40 to 60 degrees for 2 weeks, that you're going to have morels popping up just in random places. And the landscapers, they know. They walk around with the extra pouch and they take them home and eat them for dinner.
Sadly, we don't get that species down here.
Yeah. Well, you probably transplant it. I mean, it is what do you call it? It eats the bark, or at least they say it partially will
Partially
eat it.
suppressed. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know how that works, how it can be partial, but
Well, they're kind of thinking the same thing about maitake and hen of the woods. That it's
interesting.
partially saprobic, partially parasitic.
Yeah, I wonder if
Yeah.
that's why they have such trouble growing it in captivity, the maitake specifically.
Just wait until next maitake season. That's all I have to say.
Yeah,
We have some projects rolling here for that one specifically.
cool.
Nice. You know
Yeah,
that's what you know when you think of Colorado. It's does any certain mushroom pop in your head when you think of Colorado?
Here we go. Okay, either muscaria or chaga.
Yeah.
One of the
oh yeah, because I got all the subalpine forests. Yeah, I didn't think about that. Probably chaga.
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, that's so. Now I know that this is kind of like a um I guess controversial kind of comment, but you know, I really truly wanted Denver, Colorado to be that place that kind of had the mushroom game. Like that's the when if anybody thinks of like where are they really doing it right at? And now of course California, you know, they've always kind of had their scene, you know, with you know marijuana and stuff, and you know, but Denver, that's kind of where I really wanted. I've spoken with a lot of the local talent, and it's just like obviously, you know, with our last event, you know, 513 entries. That's a good turnout as
Oh
far
yeah,
as growers go, and now given that was a good portion of those growers had multiple entries, but for the most part, there was nothing more than 5 entries per grower. Um, but you know, that's the one thing that I try to expel is just, you know, let's not flood the market. Let's really push the boundary. And so far that's you know, I think that we are somewhat hitting the mark for the most part. It's just really trying to get everybody to kind of play in the same sandbox, I guess you would say. That's just really that's the hardest part, really. But
Oh yeah,
uh,
especially with the influx of new blood all the time. I mean, there's
yeah,
every day I see people that I didn't know were vending, you know, and they look like they've been around for a very long time. It's hard to tell who has and has not been, and who is and who is not a professional these days.
do you feel like there's been a kind of a decrease in um, basically giving um, the right, I'm trying to think of the word I'm trying to say, how basically saying like, hey, okay, these genetics are from Side Team United, or have you seen like a decrease in that as far as like people not really given the credits? um
Can I can I handle this one, Matt?
Yeah, go
Uh,
ahead.
yeah, there has been a huge influx of that. I study anthropology as well, so I also see this as sort of a subculture in and of itself. So I kind of study that a little bit myself. I've talked to multiple big name vendors. I'm talking like Julian, Dave Wombat, Nikki Myco, and most of them have agreed you need to do 3 generations from spore until you can change the name or call it your strain.
right.
Now, there's a lot still up in the air right now as far as that goes, because 90% of the people I've told that to, they've just said, oh, well, I didn't know that was even a thing. I didn't know there was a standard there. So I think a lot of it's going to be more about just getting the education out there. Like, we can't hide the information from people and then be like, hey, why are you not using this? You know what I mean?
Right.
So there's a lot of ethical questions and stuff based around genetics. But I think as long as you're being respectful and you kind of follow that 3 from spore rule, you're pretty good. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Of course, there's going to be stuff like James Cruz right now has greeny Vuitton. You know, it's his green isolation of blue Vuitton. You know, that's fine too. Like, people can tell where that came from. But if you're gonna, this is Starfucker United 3, then you need
Right.
some kind of way to trace it back. Like,
yeah,
at least give a hint.
Right.
yeah.
Well, it's
Well,
like the cannabis world, you know, there's so many crosses that at one point I think they just figured, well, we'll just tell you what it was crossed from. And if you're concerned with lineage, then you can look up the lineage of what it was crossed with, because we get so many crosses of crosses of crosses, you know, it becomes a question of how to track it. But
yeah.
I agree. I do see that there's more people throwing things out there without any concern for, you know, where they came from. And,
Yeah.
you know, it probably again is relative to the fact that there's a lot of new blood that's coming in, both in the vending world and in the everyday mycologist.
Well, and I also do think that was to be honest with you, again, that was another lesson that I had to learn myself. Was I was striving to create, but I did reach a point where I was less thinking of trying to create and just doing, and that was kind of like kind of a gold moment for me. Was just don't even think about where you're trying to go with it. Just do it. And that really kind of helped me out. And kind of have like a new light of things. Because again, like you said, Andrew, is just no matter what, let's just say you get one beautiful ISO and you're like, wow, that's cool. And you still have those, you still need to go down the line with it. And if it pans out, it pans out. But if you have any true followers, they're going to follow you no matter what. And that's um I think that's really where, if you just stay true to what you do, people will catch on. They'll see the realness in what you do, and that's something that, like, I guess I switched from striving to create to striving to just do and be me as a entity. And so that's when I changed. When I changed from small batch to Woods Transcending Fungi, what I wanted to have that WTF, because I was my wife constantly kept saying, she would hear me in the other room being like, "What the fuck?" And it it just and so it stuck. And and there's things that we have plans with our businesses that it takes time. It's not done overnight, but there's we wanted to kind of make it uh a product, like the name a product. So I had this idea. I don't know if you guys ever watched Marvel's What If,
Yeah.
but it's like a cartoon, and there's this character called the Watcher, and I kind of took this idea. I was like, well, what if I was like the Watcher, helping these people, guide them through this vast world of mushrooms? And that's kind of what I felt like. So like in my own world, I felt like this kind of superhero of not only growing, top shelf, but helping people kind of go through their journey with these different types of mushrooms. And so that alone, I felt like if we can build off of that, then we would have something. Now, as far as like with tree digs, did you have like, was there a certain thing that made you pop with your your business name, or?
Well, I don't know. For me, it's kind of a bittersweet, weird kind of origin. Like, it's not like this great story. It's kind of funny, but no, I couldn't think of what to name my business. It used to just be Matt Blanchard Commercial Wild Mushrooms. And I got to thinking, well, I love picking morels. That's what got me really to go all the way into mycology, was foraging and going after morels and the thrill of that. And so I had wanted to have a character. I knew what my logo was, and I wanted to have this big Sasquatch with this giant morel in his arm that he's kind of cradling like a baby, except for it looks like a giant phallical morel, we'll say. And the idea was it was a tree dick. That's what we call morels, or it's what I called morels. I guess not as many people as I thought called them that.
I did know
Anyway,
that.
so I thought, well, gosh, I'll just I'll make it a play on words, and people can read into it. Well, I could never find anybody to draw the damn logo. The guy that did it did this copy and paste bullshit, and it looked like the cutouts on the back of everybody's Jeep. Instead of like what I wanted, which was kind of like a Harry and the Hendersons Sasquatch look, but like mixed with the dude. And I couldn't ever quite get it right. And so anyway, the name, I thought, well, it's unique, and you want to have a unique name. It's more helpful if you have a catchy name that makes sense. There's a lot of cool ones out there now, like mycosporidin. I like that one. That would have been a good one to have. At the time, Myco Jordan was around. That would have been one I would have taken, because I was a huge Jordan fan. But it just it stuck, and I'm hard headed. People have said time and again, like, oh, you should maybe change your name, get a catchier name. Like, well, that's the name I chose, so you can like it or you can not.
Yeah,
Tree digs means top shelf. That's what it means.
there it is. Now I've always wondered. I think I've talked to Madden a couple times about it, but the exotic familia, is that you're a part of that as well too, right?
I am, yeah. And so that was Goomba King's child
Right.
originally. And he's kind of taken a backseat to that for a while now. I don't know really the relevance there. I think he had some things to deal with in his own life. But also, Dirty South was a member of that group, and obviously he passed away recently. And
Yeah, RP.
yeah, so it's definitely not what it was. I mean, we have some good slaps, and we do some little minor collaborations, but it's not like it was. There was a lot of good folks in there, and you just don't see the activity in the chats anymore. But it's all good folks. Most of them in the California, Colorado, Oregon kind of triangle. You know.
Well, I know, you know how long I've been doing this, but a lot of people probably don't. But I mean, it's been a few years. Time moves fast.
It
But I
does.
remember that Goomba and Dirty and Madden, and it's still to this day. It's always funny to me because um, originally I actually there was people that I looked up to. I'm not gonna go down that specific road exactly who, but there was specific people that I looked up to, and there was people that stayed true, and the people that stayed true was who I'm with talking to now, and Madden, and the exotic familia, and and so I really found myself, it was that was kind of that was another eye opener for me too. Was it was really there's a lot of people that are involved in this that I feel like they're not. I wouldn't say that they're doing things, but they're not. I feel like they're not really doing their part of what could be, you know. Um, and so that's something else that kind of makes me kind of strive to do better. Like here locally, I knew that I needed to push myself into the local community before I could really branch out. and and that's what I did. And now, when I originally hooked up with the Psychedelic Club of Denver, and we have monthly meetings and stuff, and there's another local um, company that Denver Sport Company is a part of, and these are, for the most part, these are all really, really good, talented people. Now, granted, again, just like anywhere else, there's a few people here in Colorado that might have like a tatted history, or you might not mess with them for whatever reason, or whatever. But it's kind of like Hollywood, like if you didn't play with someone just because they have a history or whatever, it's you wouldn't have anybody to play with. So it's
Right.
you kind of uh you work around situations like that. Um but I think that if we my biggest thing is that, so when you think of the testing individuals, the people that are doing the actual have like the library of genetics with every single test that they do, and they're compiled, and you're able to compare. So if you send in a sample, and like for instance, I had that experiment 95 that was the genetics from Sci Team United. If you send that sample in, and they're able to compare that sample to other tests that they have done, I feel like that is one of the more prized possessions in this industry, is that library specifically. So
Oh
like,
yeah.
so
Like the genetic library itself, or the data that they're
right,
creating.
yeah, the data in the genetic library itself. So I I knew that the one way that you could, you know, you always have stuff in the back of your head. Well, what if they're doing this or what if they're doing that? Because in this world, it is hard to trust anybody. Um, so you're the only way that I feel like you can kind of control what you do is almost have your own testing gear. So luckily, have gotten uh, we have altitude here, altitude consulting, which is they were the ones that did the testing for our local last event. And then you have I forgot their names right now, but there's another company, and like slowly but surely we're getting other companies that do our testing. But originally, I was, and I still do, I wanted to get our own testing equipment so we can actually keep up our own library. And not just if we didn't do it for, other testing of other grows, but just specifically for ours, is just so we can kind of guarantee like what our product was. And that was, I feel like that any company nowadays, that's kind of like the, if you don't have your specifications and showing, the actual, like if you're selling a product and you cannot actually physically show like your last grow and what it tested, then it's really hard for you to kind of back that product up.
Right.
And with the last test that we did, mine was one of the ones that um, it was like out of the 513, only 49 tested for the well, they only tested for like one chemical and or alkaloid, and 11 out of the 513 tested for another alkaloid. Um, so obviously we're doing something right with whatever we're doing. And figuring that out is kind of what I've been really working on. And it really kind of goes into what we've done since the beginning. And that was really kind of not following the playbook and kind
Right.
of doing what,
Writing
just
it.
feels right. What you kind of enjoy and with your recipes and what you feel like the mycelium really enjoys. And so I'm very big on hard winter wheat berries. And so I incorporate that into my agar gel and gum recipe, and sorghum as well. I know you like sorghum as well.
Recently.
I think that these are all great additions for the mycelium that if you haven't tried, then you definitely should. And I think that I think one of the key things that really kind of struck with me was when the first time I ever saw like that one big list of agar recipes. It was like 50 agar recipes, and like one of them was like dog food. I was like, what
Right.
the hell? What is dog food agar? What is this? And and of course I had to try it. It didn't work out so well for me, but
The
I
dog
wasn't
food or
really.
the dog food egger?
Yeah, I didn't really take it too serious. But I know it can work, but it didn't work for me. But
Right.
yeah,
Yeah, it's
it's
more for gourmets, I think, things that can handle the organic material or the we don't typically put like things with blood and cells and things like that in it because bacteria and really nasty molds can grow on that. So like the
yeah.
dog food has meat products in it, which can create some nasty shit. But I think it does work really well for like some of the agaricus, like the agaricus bisporus. I think that's one of the ones they were using it on back then.
Well,
Yeah.
it's a secondary decomposer. What do you what do you think? The food's dog food's already like super processed. You know what I mean?
Ugh.
It's
Yeah.
I can just picture it. Like, and I know they're probably talking about using dry dog food, but I just picture taking a can of wet dog food and just
Some Alpo.
right, right.
Wombat used ramen noodles as grain successfully once.
Yeah. I mean, I think you can anything with the right nutrient base you can use. It's like I tell people, you can use as little as honey in agar and you can grow on it, you know. All you're
Yep.
really doing is you're providing some sort of food on a nice tense surface that's got enough moisture in it. You know, like that's why we don't use Jello. Jello never quite gets firm enough. You know, it would just turn to slop in the process. Plus, it is also animal based, and so again, it can create those nasty molds and bacterias that can actually harm you. Stuff you don't want to have in your lab.
Yeah, let's not nutrient train mold or anything else to like meat. That's something let's stay away from.
Well, we were talking about piss tech not too long ago. I
Oh,
did
geez.
actually hear somebody did that with their grains. I was like, this is a serious thing. Have you ever heard of that, Paul?
What was it? You said it was. I want to make
Yes.
sure I heard that correctly.
Yes, as
Yeah.
in urine.
Yeah. Okay, that's what I thought you said. No, I haven't. I haven't. You know, actually, it sounds like I did like hear it, but I think I just brushed it off like it wasn't even something serious. But so someone's really done that.
Yeah, they said it's supposed to be helpful. I have no idea, but every time I picture it, I just think of that movie. What the heck was that? Where they were spraying their fields with Gatorade or something like that.
It's what the plant.
Idiocracy. Yeah, it just makes me
That's
think of
right.
that.
Yeah. Get some Croc shoes to go along with it.
Plants like electrolytes too.
Yeah. It's such a funny movie. Yeah, you know, something that we were talking about, we were actually supposed to do um a meeting for was we've actually been toying with the idea with, so you know, nowadays a lot of people are really big with AI, and and I came up I started thinking about, you know, mushrooms with AI. And you know, you ever seen that video where they plug in to mushrooms and they have like their own music, like
Oh yeah,
uh,
yeah, the Sonifier or something like that.
yeah. Well, I had this idea. I was like, well, you know, and not just specifically this, but you know, what if you connected it up to AI, or what if you had a sleep study where you had a dose of mushrooms and it was connected up to a AI machine. You know, there's so many different. What I'm trying to get to is that I think that the future with mushrooms in the mix with technology could be bright. I think that, you know, it's something that if people think that, you know, oh well, you know, mushrooms is just going to be a bubble and it's going to pop. I don't see that. I think that moving forward, as long as we still have a country, moving forward,
Key importance, yes.
yeah, not to get too political, but I think that, you know, there is a bright future with mushrooms. And you know, when where it really clicked was before the big CES event that we had here. We had a small event last January, and there was we were super busy, and there was guys that were walking around with notepads, and they were asking me all these questions, you know, like, well, what do you do with this, and what do you do, you know, trying to get the rundown. And I realized who these guys, they were the money, they were money man trying to you
They're
know,
getting the lingo, getting all
right.
the words down so
Yeah.
they can sell.
Yeah.
Right? Uh,
And that's where it really kind of clicked. And I was like, and that kind of, in a way it scared me, but it also kind of lit a fire under my ass, because it was like, okay, this is like, I knew that for once in my life I had possibly been ahead of the curve on something. And I was like, but it's a matter of time. And
right.
but the one good thing that, everyone in this chat right now, we have the privilege of having, a few years under our belts, and if not longer. And that's the one thing that you can't really write down on a notepad.
Yeah.
That's you're dealing with the people now that are like grandma's recipe, a little bit of this and a little bit of that. Like we have it down to science, basically. And
Right.
till this day, I don't even I don't like copy. I don't have a recipe that I just read off of. And it's because I've just done it so many times. And you know, I have just my agar recipe alone. People made fun of me. I mean, they used to say, like, what, you don't need to do all that. It's too much, and they didn't understand. They didn't have the vision, I guess you would say. I was like, I'm not trying to do what everyone else is doing. I really wanted to stand out. And I never forget, I had this one guy. He asked me, like, "Hey man, do you have any recommendations on like books for growing mushrooms?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure." I was like, what are you looking more? Are you looking more towards, like, do you want to know about soil? Do you want to know about like grain? He was like, "No, no, no." He was like, just kind of like a how-to guide. And I was like,
Yeah. So you don't know
I'm
anything yet. That's
right. I'm like, you don't. I was like, we're on two different playing fields here. So it's, that was and stuff like that really even pushes me even harder, because it's like, you know there's so many people out there that, I know that there's people out there that have degrees, and that's not me. I'm not the guy that went to college and, know everything about biology and stuff like that. That's not me. But if I'm a cancer, if I'm passionate about something, I will go across the world to figure out something.
right.
So, it's it's not really about, it's really not about where you end up at. It's the journey. So, and that's that's what I really try to tell people, is because we still learn things along the way, and that's the beauty about it.
Right. Well, and I think especially with mycology, we should see that we're early enough in its history that the anecdotal information is the science. The
Yeah.
science has just started to develop. Like, I mean, I get the understanding that in science in general, there's a separation, but we're in a really new and a unique situation, and it takes us all.
Yeah.
You and me, we're the boots on the ground. We're the farmers. We're growing the shit. We've been growing the shit for 15, 20 years. You know,
Yeah.
we need that information that the scientists and the really smart folks can come up with and provide, but they also need us because we have to practically, you know, try out their theories. It's just a
Right.
theory until one of us, typically, I mean, a lot of them are multitaskable too, but until one of us grows it out and proofs it and then spreads it to the world.
Well,
And
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, and most of the people that I'm teaching and work with, they get really annoyed because I'll tell them all of the science theory, and then they'll be like, "Okay, is this grain good?" And I'm like, "I don't know. Let me bounce it in my hands and feel it." And like, I'll bounce and be like, "Yep, that's good. Go ahead." And they're like, why is that? You just told me what percentage of hydration it needed. You told me how much to put. You told me all this stuff, and then you just shook it a little bit, and you knew it was good. And I was like, yes, that's yes.
Yeah, final
That's
approval.
how that's how it ends up. And eventually, you do get to where like, hey, I know this is right. I
Right.
know you get a feel
Yeah.
for it, so to speak.
Yeah. Yeah. And that is, to me, I think that's something that you can only achieve like when you do kind of have that true passion, for something like this. Um, you know, uh, and there's some things that I believe in, um that others don't believe in, but that's okay. Like I
Yeah,
can still work with you, even if we have completely different views of certain things, because just like you said, the science is still relatively new. So we kind of, a lot of it is still kind of a guessing game. However, there's certain things that we do know.
yeah,
And so for instance, extracellular digestion, that was something that really kind of stuck out for me was, they say, well, mushrooms don't grow like plants. Okay, well then explain extracellular digestion, because it's technically it's essentially almost the same thing,
very
in a
similar.
sense, you
Yeah,
know.
And break that down for us so that some of us can
So
understand that better. What
basically,
is it?
the shortest way to say it is that basically mushrooms they send out, or I'm horrible about the technical terms of this, so I'm probably going to butcher this, but basically they send out a chemical that kind of helps break down the nutrients around in their surrounding, and they digest the breakdown of that.
Okay. Yeah,
so
And
there's
so
animals that do that in nature too, but like essentially they put some sort of acid or something on it to break down their food source to make it
di-
palatable for them.
digestion enzymes.
right.
Yeah. Huh,
Yeah,
so
cool.
so whenever someone tells me, why are you going through all of those steps of adding this and adding that? Um, it's, I'm not going to sit here and pretend that, I don't have the, I don't put out the perfect looking tubs, and I don't put out the, um, the picture perfect things that everyone seems to enjoy. That's not what I'm doing this for. What I'm doing it for is those testing results, and to see, okay, if I have this in my substrate all the way, or even not just from the substrate, but literally from the beginning, from agar all the way, you know, uh, those little details can make a huge difference. And
Sure, yeah.
you know again, certain people don't believe, if they don't believe certain things, like even for instance, I'm a big gym person, and I put gyms in my growing room. And so like, little things like that, I to down to playing music for your mushrooms or whatever, it's the same thing. And people that grow weed, they do the same thing.
Right.
And you know uh, I just think that it's really truly about the caring. Whatever you do for the mushrooms. Of course, there's things that the mushrooms are going to be like, I don't want no part of that.
Right.
But there's some things that I mean, I've even, the chemicals are in like protein powders. People put in protein powder in their substrate. I mean, there's so many different little things that you can try, and until you do it in controlled and tested environments, then you really don't know, and you
Yeah.
really can't tell someone, hey, you're doing it wrong, until you physically have done it.
Right.
So
And like you say, there's no tests from start to finish to say, okay, well, using this plant sugar from the very beginning to the end will increase X, Y, Z.
Right.
And there's a lot of that could be happening that we just have no idea, what that mushroom is metabolizing and turning into what in the long run.
Yeah.
Did you happen to be in the chat or with us live with Madden when we got that one very interesting question? Matt, I know you know what I'm talking about.
I don't
But
remember though. I probably do.
we were live, and I can't remember if it was me or Madden or somebody else, but somebody got a question. Hey guys, if you spill a full 2 liter in a tub, will it still fruit? And literally, like, we were already live, and somebody read that out loud while we were all discussing mycology. And everyone just lost it. We were like, no, I don't think those sugars are what the mushrooms really want.
Right.
Probably start over.
Well, if my meat cooks well with it, then maybe the mushrooms will do well with it.
Yeah, I kind of think probably the acidity would do a lot of damage in that situation too.
Yeah.
So there is a lot of like fuck around and find out that we can do, but within reason, like let's not throw.
And take information down. That's the other thing too. Is a lot of people say, "Well, hey, I did this," and you ask them, they're like, "Well, I don't remember how much I put in there."
Yeah.
Well, then it's anecdotal then.
Yeah. Gotta repeat
Well,
it.
it still amazes me though that like the acidity and that and stuff. Like there's like again, there's things that we know that isn't going to mix well. But there is certain things like I think I did a video where I was doing a pH testing of the substrate runoff, and I had some relatively respectable people say that's a joke, and it's like no, it wasn't. Like and it amazes me that there's so many people that it's almost like there's sometimes I think that these like ignorance is bliss kind of situation where like my ignorance is almost a blessing, because like where like these guys that might have like PhDs or whatnot, they only have a very straightforward look. So like my ways are kind of like, well, this maybe this would be something that they would be like, hey, no, that's stupid, why would you do that? But to me it's like, oh well, this is helping me figure out this. So like maybe that is one thing to kind of fuck around and find out type situation. And of course, and if you're in a live with Matt, then there's a good chance that you have probably been a fuck around and find out person anyways.
Yeah, we like to encourage that kind of thing. I mean, you like to say, that's how we find things out. There may be silly shenanigans that result sometimes, but you know what? Those are fun too.
Yeah.
Speaking of Madden, by the way, Matt, I'm supposed to tell you he wants to record a thing today.
This is me telling like you. Here or on his podcast?
I think he said he wanted to do his podcast early and us be on it as well.
Oh, okay. I don't know. I've got a bunch of buzzing happening next to me that I haven't checked, so I probably have messages.
Gotcha.
I feel horrible because I always try to make Friday nights, but when the time comes, I'm either passed out or doing something else. So it just it doesn't quite turn out that way.
Yeah. I'm a lot, man, just because we figured out that I'm 3 hours ahead of Madden somehow.
Yeah, he's in the same time zone as me.
Oh yeah. Because I'm originally from South Carolina, and it's that plane ride from South Carolina, like that. When you see the clocks turn back, you're like, oh my god, dude, it's so exhausting.
Yeah. Well, my parents actually live in out there, kind of near you in Loveland.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Loveland's nice. It's kind of peaceful out in Loveland, I think.
Yeah, they just raise dogs out there.
Nice. Nice.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
that would
think
be a good life.
I think the one thing I think about Colorado is I almost feel safe here. Like if all hell broke loose like in the world, like I don't know why, but I feel like I always felt in South Carolina that being so close to the water, it was just I don't know. I felt like we would be the first ones that would be wiped off the map or something.
Right, right. The
Yeah.
tsunami or a bomb went off. Yeah.
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 Yeah, we're in a unique position here. Like our coastline in Oregon is set up such that we have a mountain range in between us and the ocean, but there's another little mountain range on the other side of us, the valley. So we're right in the Willamette Valley.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
All
But
not
you
right,
you live
well,
you've lived
we've
there the
got.
whole life, right?
I have indeed. Yes,
Yeah.
I've. Gosh, let's see, 1982. So long time,
Nice.
42 years,
Well,
I
hey,
didn't.
I
almost.
appreciate it, man. Appreciate you letting me come on and tell a little
Yeah.
bit about the transcending fungi.
Well, it was fun to
Yeah.
talk with you, and we didn't have any dropped lines, no power outages. Got cold and ice on my end happening, and Andrew's got storms passing by. So I think it all
Yeah.
went really well.
Yeah,
Good.
man, definitely. Well, we'll do it again.
Make
All
sure you check
right.
us
Well,
out
you
each week.
gentlemen
We'll
have a
have some
nice day.
exciting guests.
Happy
Check
Friday.
us out Saturdays, released first thing in the morning at 12 a.m. You can watch us anytime thereafter.